This presentation will help you write the research paper proposal. The length is only 1 to 3 pages, so we really need the concise writing here. Grade is 200 points, that's 20% of the grade. Ungraded, no grade on this at all. Week 3, rough draft. Final 200-point version, Sunday, week 4. Now, the business case scenario, you are still the editor at Parker Benson Publishing, the scholarly publishing firm that specializes in fields requiring APA formatting. However, there's a little bit of a change here. You graduated with your master's degree, so you are seeking employment in your field. You want to emphasize your writing skills, and the way to do that is to publish an article in a scholarly journal in your field. So your best opportunity is with the people who know you. So you've asked Robert Warner to review a proposal for an article. He says he will if you follow his guidelines. I'm going to kind of skip over this slide because I cover it in more depth in the actual research paper YouTube video or PowerPoint, and I want you to see these two PowerPoints together so that you see the requirements for the entire 400-point assignment. You know these guidelines, except this time you're writing to Robert Warner, and I'm giving you the subject line. This is what you're doing. Request to publish an article. You're not publishing the article, you're not writing the article at this time. In fact, sometimes students write this proposal, they think about it, and they say, that's not quite what I want to spend all this time on. So that's why I go in more depth in the next presentation, PowerPoint, to give you some ideas of topics that worked well for other students. But this should be easy for you to format. I will suggest that you take Parker Benson Publishing and make it into a fancy logo format by using color, a larger font, maybe adding a little graphic design. Some of you still haven't done that. Now, requirements. Remember, 1 to 3 pages. It'll probably be more, like 3, but be brutal with your, your revisions. Don't tell Robert Warner about himself, for example. You've got to just take the sections that are on the next slides and just hit it right on the head, okay? Don't add extra words. You know this from the previous one, the APA memo, so we're going to kind of skip over this, but size 12 times New Roman font, single space, that sort of thing. Okay, here's what we're doing. We're creating a structure with 6 different sections. We'll open with the objective. Why are you writing this document? What is this proposal about? We'll end with an action close. When Robert Warner puts the proposal down or, turns off the computer, what do you want him to do? That's the next step. What are you suggesting? Okay, so section 1 is the introduction. Briefly, see how that's italicized and underlined. Briefly state the problem or opportunity. Why do you want to publish this article now? Then an appropriate limited background. Okay, don't give too much information. Don't write the report. 1 to 3 pages. Please don't email me or call me and say, but I've just got so much I want to give this editor about this topic, because he won't care. He only wants 1 to 3 pages to decide if he should give the approval for you to go ahead. If you write too much, you are taking control. You're saying, Warner, you just have to publish this, whether you want to or not. I already wrote it, so publish it. There's no more sure way to offend an editor than to assume that your work will be published. Now, the third part of the introduction is the scope, establishing boundaries and limitations for your article. How did you narrow this broad topic? For example, say you want to do the one, and I know I do have occasionally English majors. You may want to write about whether you should self-publish your novel or try to get a publishing company. Maybe you want to narrow it to certain kinds of novels, a mystery novel, should it be self-published or not, rather than do every single type of novel in the whole wide world, that sort of thing. If you're doing the one about multicultural customs and what an expatriate has to know to transfer and live in that country, you don't want to do the whole entire globe. You want to choose one city, perhaps, or maybe one nation, that sort of limitation. How did you decide to establish what you would cover and what you wouldn't cover? Okay, audience analysis. This gets very tricky. You have to have the target audience for the article. Who would read your article and why would they read it? This is really what Warner wants to know. This is your opportunity to market this article, research paper that you are writing. But remember, there's two audiences, the target audience and Robert Warner. Don't tell Robert Warner about himself. Don't say, because you're a widely known editor, you will recognize the importance of this article. Well, he knows if he's widely recognized or not, and he frankly doesn't care of your opinion of that, I'm sure. Don't tell him about his background. Don't beg. Just sell the article, the topic. Why is it important? And who would think it's important? Analyze Robert Warner, the acquisition editor, who decides what goes into the publication, off the page. Don't tell him about himself. Now, section 3, research methods. This is your proposed approach to show how you will research your project. You can mention secondary sources. And by the way, if it doesn't work out later on, you can forget those sources and use different ones. But you're going to suggest what sources you'd use. You can only use secondary sources, things that other people have written, like newspaper articles, books, websites, scholarly journal articles. And you can write about your own inspections, okay? If you're writing about, say, the smartwatch or the Fitbit, something like that, you can get the object, inspect it, and write your own opinions. But you can't do interviews, you can't do surveys because of the IRB requirements. That stands for Institutional Review Bureau. It goes back to the World War when the Japanese were mistreated and the government stepped in and said you can't do academic research or any kind of research on people unless you fill out a lot of forms and there's a committee that decides if you're being ethical. That's the history of this. I don't violate it in my classes. I know a lot of other people are pretty flexible about this, but I don't want you to go into the workplace with these controversial topics and start interviewing people, and maybe somebody else's boss overhears and there leads to problems. That's what the federal government is worried about. So we're going to follow the federal government rules and say you'll use secondary sources and your own inspections. Now, in this proposal, you can briefly mention the sources you may use, but don't write the report or any citations in the proposal, because remember, that's saying, Robert Warner, I don't care what you think. I'm going ahead and I'm writing this article anyway, without your advice. You don't want to do that. So talk about the sources by name, but don't mention the ideas in them. Don't start writing the report. Section 4, this one students, they tend to stress out over this, but it's so simple. Now you are back to being yourself. Okay, yourself. You are going to be the Writing 293 students, and you are going to tell me, Linda Brender, how you intend to meet all these due dates. You have weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's on one side of the chart. And then you just name the projects that's due. Week 3, research paper, article, proposal, either one or both. But that's what goes here, okay? Now, don't drift into telling a story about people who are going to work with you on this project and all of that. Nope, it's a simple chart. It just tells me that you are aware of the deadlines in this class because we can't drift over into next semester. I have to have you finish everything on time. So that's why this is in here. It's also a part of most proposals. How do you intend to get the work done and submit it by deadline? Section 5, Qualifications. This is another one where students tend to stress out. Remember, your topic choice can be based on a job you have now or career you have now, one you want to transition into, or a hobby or some sort of community service interest that you have. So if you're choosing the topic, there's something about it that interests you. So that's what we're getting on here. Your your qualifications could just be a strong interest. If you're going to do something about the environment, I don't have anything on there that I can think of that falls into that. But say you write to me and you propose it, we, then your interest is a part of your qualifications. There's one exception here. Assume you earned a master's degree, even if you are writing about a hobby rather than your career or major. Okay? And then examples of other qualifications may be a course you took, community service, related work experience, somebody you may know that has a strong interest in a career in this. Can be anything like that. And then let's wrap this up with a conclusion. Notice how conclusion is used here as the end of the report, whereas in the next PowerPoint, it's not the end of the report and it has an S on it. It's conclusions that you draw from your research in the next PowerPoint. Here, it just means we're going to wrap it up. You need a brief action close requesting approval to publish the article, your research report. Remember, okay, you don't have that approval yet, so you have to request it. Some sort of suggestion to move the project forward, maybe a teleconference, maybe stopping by his office, something like that. But you want to end with him being programmed that, oh, here's the next steps. And then final reminder here on this slide, don't offend the editor by assuming he has given approval before reading and accepting your proposal. That's a proposal killer. When you do that, it offends them and it makes them feel like you've seized control when you don't have the right to do that. Choose your words carefully. They should be easily understood by a multilingual audience that may not have learned English as a baby. Okay? This is 21st century workplace, so we have to use words that everyone will understand without running to the Oxford English Dictionary. Now that's a little bit ironic sometimes because sometimes the people who know 6 languages have got the Oxford English Dictionary memorized, but the bottom line here is clear and concise writing, grammatical, and get rid of the mechanical mistakes too. And avoid plagiarizing. You can mention the names of sources, but don't cite them or don't copy ideas from them yet. That comes the next time around. And obviously, things go through turnitin.com at University of Maryland. Now, final reminders, you've seen this before. Don't write those unnecessary words. I don't want to read them because in the workplace, we want to go home as quickly as possible. And those extra words are often the ones that cause problems. And don't write this as a student. and don't plagiarize. And good luck.